Wow.
So much for thinking this, right?
All right, boys and girls. Coming to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have the preview and approval of agenda. I would take a motion, please.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Have the consent agenda. I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The 4A, delegations, recognitions. Do we have any audience delegations?
No.
Thank you. MSBA delegate report. Jenny?
All right. This month was a recap of what took place at Jefferson City. And so one of the senators, Senator Carla Esslinger, spoke, and she spoke there encouraging school board members to get involved in the legislative process as much as possible, because it's through our service and dedication to our community and to our children that the school board and the community should reflect the same values together. So our school board should be the same as what our community is wanting, and that is how we can truly help make the democracy work, especially on a local level, and we have the opportunity to control what is good for our children in our community. So that's why it's important that we are paying attention to the bills and seeing if we can get some things passed and so forth. Also at the Advocacy Day, there was a student showcase, and they had over 20 different schools were there with different programs. And the First Lady of Missouri, Teresa Parson, was there. And she got to observe the programs and got to speak to the students and interact with them. And I know that was probably really special for those kids there that day. Really, as for that, the legislative bills that they're looking at, there's one called the Charter Expansion Bill. This basically would allow charter schools to be open in Boone and St. Charles counties. And it can be by entities other than the school district that they can create these charter expansion bill. However, it was heard at the Senate, but it's laid over right now. They haven't passed it or voted on it, so it's been heard. The homeschool and virtual activity participation bill has been moved. It has an amendment that will limit 4-day school weeks for some of the districts. And basically what this one will do is it will provide, which I think a lot of school districts already have this, but this will provide the certain homeschool and virtual students opportunity to try out and participate in the public school things such as sports and plays and things like that. But I think they're trying to, from what I can understand, again, I've not been here but a couple of years, so what I can understand is there's some amendments to it to maybe change how that works right now. I don't know what the past one was. So they're looking at that, and there is no action yet on open enrollment and no action on moving the school board elections. And I did look up on that a little bit, Nancy, and it is going to be like let's say it's, if they were to move that in 2024, it would be 2 people that would be open seats, and then in 2026 it would be 5. So it still should stay 7 from what I read and could understand. And it would be a 4-year term is how they would do it. But again, it's not moved at all. So the open enrollment, which is kind of a good thing, that hasn't moved, as well as the school board elections changing has not moved. So those are the legislative bills that we've been looking at here lately. And the recap was MSBA. And also they wanted to say welcome new board members and congratulations to you joining to school board. All right, that's it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Item 4C, partner organization, the Academic Booster Club. I understand we have someone here.
Hi, I'm Laura Coffey. I'm the treasurer with the Academic Booster Club. The Academic Booster Club supports the high school in honoring academic achievements throughout the year. Some things we've done in the past year. In August, we provided awards for students achieving ACT scores of 30 or higher. We recognize students that scored well in AP exams as well. I believe scored a 4 or 5. Over 181 academic letters were presented to freshmen, sophomores, and juniors from the previous school year. Along with our business partner Sonic, in the spring, we were able to recognize first semester grades. There were 230 students in the principal's honor roll. They received Sunday coupons, and also 110 students on the honor roll received additional Sonic drink coupons, kind of a fun incentive. A total of 340 students were honored for their academic achievements. In the last month of school, we do some graduation incentives. We've been preparing certificates for seniors that have lettered in academics. Gold honor cords were purchased and given to seniors who have earned a GPA of 4.0 or higher, and they will wear these at graduation. And next year, this past year, our fundraising consisted of selling Wildcat Senior 2022 t-shirts. Those were pretty popular. That was pretty successful for us. We also had income from Amazon Smile donations and Dog with Energy, a local business. We plan to offer senior t-shirts again next year. That was pretty successful. We're going to push that forward in 2024. Amazon Smile, of course, has discontinued. We're going to reach out for other businesses for support to keep these incentives and these recognitions going for students. We're looking for parent volunteers. We currently have 2 members for next year to support the organization, me and another individual. We have one whose senior's graduating, so she's stepping down. And it takes about 5 to really keep everything moving like we want it to move. So, feel free to send people our way. Parents who really want to get in there and honor academic achievement. Our funds have been very limited the past few years, so we're looking for ways to kind of get things going again, fundraising wise, so we can do AP test snacks, first class CATS awards, and some other incentives that we offered in years previous. Thank you for your continued interest and support of the organization. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Do you have meetings on a regular basis?
We have meetings in definitely the fall and spring as we start to honor. There's not really a regular scheduled meetings right now. Of course, it's just the 3 of us, so we're in a lot of constant communication, more informally, emails and such, a couple of times a semester, basically. But as if it grows as an organization, there'll be more that we're doing, there'll be more to do, and I'm sure there'll be more regular in our meetings. So, thank you.
5A, monthly information items. Is there any questions about anything that was presented? If not, we'll go to 5B, what's great today?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm here to do our 3 great news stories that I'd like to share with you. And the first one, well, new book members actually can probably help tell the story. But I'll start back in the fall. Mrs. Thomas, Jeannie Thomas at HES has a garden club that she meets with. And in the fall, the garden club started talking about making sure the birds had food in the winter. So they started, because they didn't have any money, they started with pine cones, peanut butter, bird seed, put those out for the birds. But the kids really thought it would be important to buy bird feeders, have good bird feeders. So they thought they should just write a letter to the bank and they would give them the money. So they wrote letters to the bank. Those are the letters up there. So they wrote letters to Hawthorne Bank. And Ashley was gracious enough to come and visit the class. And she talked to them about getting a loan and what you have to have to get a loan and showing that you're trying to make your own money too, and all the things about saving. And she talked to them a lot about it. It was a great presentation. They had great questions. She did end up giving them a gift card from Hawthorne Bank with a little bit of money on it. And they also set to sell smitzels. Smitzels or smell pencils during the book fair. So they did both those things. They sold the pencils, they made some money, and then they were invited by Family Center, Jeff Roberts, to come out to shop for those bird feeders and bird seed. So then they went to Family Center, and you could see them out there shopping, and they had a student that was a treasurer that was keeping track. They'd go pick out what they wanted to buy, and they were making sure they didn't go over their budget. And so they bought some bird feeders and bird seed. They ended up, a company, Wild Delight donated 2 bags of birdseed and activity books for each student. They had $125 budgeted, and they did not go over that. So they got their birdseed, their bird feeders, and that was kind of the conclusion of that. So it was a great real world learning type project for that garden club. Did I miss anything, Patricia?
I don't think so.
Ashley, did you have anything to add?
It was awesome. They felt that if they said please and thank you, that the bank would then.
Don't work, I've tried that.
It goes a long way.
That's right. That is right. I forgot that part. They made sure to say please and thank you on their letter, but anyway, I thought that was a great story to share. I kind of shared it a little bit in the fall, and then I wanted to on Facebook, and then I shared the conclusion of it when they got to go to Family Center. The next thing, we are so lucky in this district to be able to be all Wildcats. That is what sets us apart, that we can all be Wildcats. And so over the last few weeks, there's been a lot of opportunities for our high school kids, and they do it regularly, interact with our young kids through various ways. And so I just wanted to spotlight a few of those things that have happened. You'll see the Key Club up there did an Easter egg hunt at ECC for the little kids, or for the kindergartners. That was a lot of fun. Regularly, we have High Five Fridays at our elementary schools, and there's adult groups that go as well, but mostly it's been kid groups that go, the different sports, the different clubs. That's the girls wrestling team doing one earlier this year. At HES in the upper corner there, Mrs. Hopper's class and the science club have had a relationship throughout the year, and the science club goes over monthly. Monthly to do a science experiment and something. So in this, they're doing a water filtration experiment here, where they have dirty water and they've used various items to help filter that water. So they're watching and seeing how their filter works. So they talked about that. And then, of course, one of my favorites every year is the FFA petting zoo at ECC. The FFA members bring all their animals over, and they have the animals, the tractor. It's just a great thing. So it's just really a wonderful thing to be able to have our high school students interact with those younger kids. So I wanted to share that one. And then the last one is I just want to spotlight our teachers who go above and beyond and write foundation grants and get those grants funded. So twice a year the foundation does grants, and so twice a year we give out funds, and these grants were all fall grants that are now in action being used in classrooms or outside of classrooms. The first one is the 5th graders went to the World War I Museum. The foundation doesn't normally fund field trips necessarily, but they wanted to try this one because they've never been there, and World War I is part of their new social studies unit. And so they wanted to try that as a field trip to see if that was something they wanted to do consistently. So we funded it for the trial, and so they got to go just last week or the week before to the World War I Museum, and I think it was a really great experience for those graders. They loved it. Good. And the second one there is a high school student using her personal EKG monitor in anatomy and physiology. We got the funds from the foundation purchased these monitors that they can use, and it's set up to an app on their phone, and it reads it gives them a reading of their different heart measures. But they're using those in anatomy and physiology. Above that is pickleball in HES PE class. So Coach Thorpe wrote a grant and got pickleball and badminton supplies so that they could work on those hand-eye coordination type skills. And so they're now playing pickleball in PE. And then Mr. Bebout wrote a district grant and got new calculators, fancy math calculators, that do some high-level math, that help with high-level math, and those are students using those calculators. They got a larger grant for that. So the teachers had to take it upon themselves to write those grants to get those things for the kids. So that's not necessarily, I wasn't trying to focus on the foundation funding those, but the fact that those teachers are working on those grants and submitting those and getting these experiences and these opportunities for our kids. So those are the three things. Any questions?
Great, thank you. 6A is assessment and evaluation of district programs. That would be as of the end of March, we're 75% of our fiscal year complete. Overall revenues for the fiscal year are at 88% of our working budget. If you're looking at comparison to last year, March revenues are down a little bit from last year, but the year to date is comparable. It's just a timing difference in when revenues came in. On the expenditure side, overall we're at 73% of our working budget. And expenditures are very comparable to last March, except for Fund 4 because of our bond projects. Fund balances, our ending projected fund balance percentage is 52.8%, up from 49.96 last year. And just as a reminder of what that fund balance percentage is really telling us, it's an indicator of the financial stability of the district. It's a formula where assets minus our liabilities are compared to what we predict our annual expenditures to be. So for example, with March, with it being at 52%, that means we have enough funds available in our operating budget to fund 52% of our year, or about 6 months, okay? Our goal is the 20 to 25% range, or about 3 months worth of expenditures, but in the cases of school districts, we see large fluctuations in that fund balance percentage. And that's because most of our tax revenues come in during December and January, and then you'll slowly see that fund balance go down as the year progresses. And then just a note too that fund balance doesn't necessarily mean cash. The fund balance also takes into account any of our liabilities that we have on our books, and those are mostly going to be maybe payroll liabilities, where we deducted things from employees' paychecks but haven't submitted them for like voluntary insurances, etc. Or if there's a lot of lunch account balances, if like we're holding people's money. Or in the case of this year, it's reversed, where they actually owe us money. Little odd there for that. So, any questions on that fund balance? Kind of a little explanation there for you. Year to date, we have revenues are $5.8 million above our expenditures, and total cash and investments are at $20.1 million. With still about $330,000 of bond proceeds out there. Okay. Any questions? Thank you very much. Strategic plan update.
So Deb already gave you the good news on the financials side of it. So just to reiterate, yeah, that number will come down to the year-end fund balances, and that's the number that's reported on our annual Secretary of the Board reports. So that's kind of what when people talk about fund balances, that's the number they generally refer to and what we generally put into our desires for the board. So the one thing I wanted to point out this month is the positive efforts that particularly our building administrators made toward professional development for next year with the calendar changes. A lot of work downstairs today. Planning for next year, what those days are going to look like, and just good to see a good constructive process, collaborative effort, and they're just doing a great job. So. All right.
Thank you. Item 6C, waiver of teacher contract days.
I move to waive makeup of the January 25, 2023 and February 15, 2023 teacher contract days.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
So these are the 2 days. One was the parade, and one was the weather day. because of the number of hours that we have built into the calendar, these are the last few years we've been able to request and receive forgiveness for teacher contract days. That goes away next year with the change in contract, but one more waiver. So.
One more year. Any questions, discussion? If not, we'll take a vote on this. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you all very much.
Item 6D, discussion on extracurricular transportation. I know we have some questions about some ongoing transportation items.
Mary's here, can we have her give us an update, or is that appropriate, or?
It's fine.
Mary, can you give us an update on where the bus, can you update the board on where your bus, the process and what you guys are going through right now?
Just here to listen.
Sorry. I think it'd be better for them to hear it from you.
That's okay. So currently, our bus that the Booster Club currently owns is at Masters in Belton. It went in for some repairs. In the process of that, Masters actually ended up damaging our bus. We are in the middle of talking with our attorney, and we would like for Masters Insurance to pay for the damages plus possibly loss of revenue from not having the bus for, it's been a couple of months now. When we took it in, they told us 2 weeks for parts. We waited until the parts were supposedly there, took it in, they worked on it, then they said they needed more parts. Then they kept saying that they were finding more stuff that was wrong with it. And we went, by that point, we were about 6 weeks in, and we were double the original estimate that we were given. So we had consulted with some other mechanical people in town, and we decided that we were going to pull the bus from Masters, finish the work somewhere else, and try to get the bus back on the road. When we advised Masters not to touch the bus any longer, and we were going to come and pick it up, settle our bill where it was at, then they called back and advised us that the bus had been damaged, supposedly right then and there. We're a little unclear as to when that might have happened. We can't prove anything, but there's several people that believe that it might have happened prior to that day. And so when we said we wanted to come and pick it up, I think at that time they decided that they were going to tell us that the bus was damaged. So everything's kind of up in the air now. We do have our club attorney involved, and we have told Masters that we're going to turn it. We want them to turn it into their insurance. So that's where we're at right now. That bus will not, even if we pulled it right now, even if we went to them and said, fine, we'll pay the bill, just let us have the bus back so we can put it back in rotation. It's still not finished. They still don't have it done. They were still waiting on parts, supposedly, and it's just kind of been a mess with Masters. So we are waiting for the insurance to take a look at the bus before we move it, because we don't want them to say that we damaged anything after we turned in the claim. So that is in motion. I don't have a time frame for that, but bus 8 is what's referred to for you guys. It will not be back in rotation this year.
The concern I have too is just thinking through the process that it took, as long as it took the total out to include 7, and just the entire process and having to go through with attorneys and stuff. What's the likelihood of having a bus for even to start the school year?
So, we don't want them to total it out, right? There is damage to it, but I don't think that there's damage enough to total it out. We just want them to pay for the damage that they have done. Worst case scenario would be totaling it out. Now, what would be involved in that? It depends on how hard they want to fight about it, right? It would just depend on how hard they're willing to push. We have our documentation. they have their documentation, and it would just be, the insurance companies at that point. But that is worst case scenario. That is not what we're after. We do not want them to total it. We want them just to fix the damage and basically tell us that we don't owe them anything at this point. That's our goal.
As we get that, obviously we have to make a decision next month about contracts and stuff. I think we need to be thinking ahead that if this isn't, this could be a process. We don't know how long it is, and we know we need buses. I think Mr. Maxwell said that we had missed, 4 or 5 trips already, and we have a risk, or had to change some things.
We've had to change a few. We haven't had to miss anything.
I didn't miss anything, just change them.
But we've had 7 days in the last 20 to 25 days that if we hadn't had at least one of those, we would have canceled at least 1, if not 2 activities each day. And we've got another 5 to 6 of those dates coming from now until the end of school. So, it hurts. If we didn't have the van, honestly, too, then we wouldn't be able to, we would be canceling lots. Or, like yesterday, Odessa shows up for a track meet that starts at 4 o'clock. They showed up at 1:15. They have to leave at 12:30 to get here so they can get dropped off, and that bus has to drive back an hour so they can run their route and then come back and get them again. That's what's best for them right now, but that's not what's best for kids necessarily as far as their education goes. But
That's becoming more and more common too, unfortunately, in the last couple of years. Because of the lack of bus drivers, we're seeing a lot more of that type of situation where they double run the bus. They run the activity kids to the activity and then run the route. Typically what we do, what Echo Ride does for us, is a double route. So they'll double route and then they'll send an extra bus. So you just have to make major modifications. So
I will say, next month we might have a little bit better idea. The attorney hasn't actually gotten his hands on the reports and stuff from Masters. This is all just beginning. This was about a week ago, that we told Masters that we were pulling it because we wanted to get the work done somewhere else so that we could get the bus back in rotation. So this is fairly new as far as where we're at in the process. So I would say maybe next month might better be an indication of where we would be for next school year. But our plan is to have that bus by July when routes start back up for sports for next year. That's our hope.
Is there any plans by the Booster Club to go back or purchase a second bus?
I think there has been some mention of it, yes. I don't know. I think we want to find out where we stand with this one. And hopefully we have this one to continue into next year. And then once we financially stabilize ourselves again, depending upon what this ends up costing us, it is always our plan to have 2 big blues. So I just don't have a time frame on if we're going to, when we would be able to have that second one. But that's always our goal, is to have 2.
Sure.
And they haven't reported to you, Mary, on what the damage that they have done?
So they've told us what they have to, right? So
Right.
My understanding is, and we have some pictures that Mike Johnson took for us. I asked him to look at the route that they took and the damage that they had done, just because I'm not mechanically inclined whatsoever. So, and he was gracious enough to do that for me. So they kind of have like an outside turn. It's a very tight squeeze to turn any large vehicle in their parking lot. And so what they do is, and I say that I've never physically seen it, but you can tell by the ruts is how I'm getting to this conclusion. So they have like a median kind of thing that runs close to their drive. And they just kind of take the vehicle this way, and instead of cutting it and trying to maneuver their way into the garage, they just simply floor it right over the median. they've done it so much. In the picture, you can see the rut where the tires have worn when they go up and over the curb. And when they did that with our bus, it grabbed a hold of the undercarriage where the muffler and the exhaust system is, and it ripped it right out.
Right.
So that is the damage that they told us about. Are we ever going to really know how much damage they've done? Not really. That's why we want to get the insurance adjuster involved and make sure that they are responsible for everything, that not just what is physically to the eye, but anything else that might actually be damaged.
How long have the Big Blues, I know that they've been in the district for, I guess, since the 70s. Have they always been owned by the Booster Club, or has there always been a different arrangement?
Always owned by the Booster
It's
Club.
always owned by the Booster Club. Are there any other districts that do that?
Yes. But I'm aware of.
Uh,
Hadn't been.
Pleasant Hill had one for a while. They still have it.
They do not have those
Yeah.
mechanically, they just, something happened, they couldn't afford it. I've had two schools that this year contact me, getting information on how they can start that up in their district, that's within our conference. So there are several that do this.
Delbert, was that Delbert or ran it for us back in the day even?
He was a driver.
Yeah, who drove?
But there's some other districts, and I don't know if they're still doing it. I shouldn't say I still know if they're doing it, but we had, when I was president of it, and I did it for 7 years, so I understand what you're going through. It's a great thing, but it takes up a lot of extra time.
Yeah.
The buses are expensive.
They are expensive.
It's a great benefit back to the district. We lease the bus from the Booster Club. They receive the funds, and then they're able to help support the athletic programs in the district. But anyway,
It's definitely
we
a
had-
privilege.
Yeah.
Like, watching the middle school kids have that time when they get on Big Blue is probably cooler than winning the game, I would imagine, to some of them. So
It is nice. I still think it gives the kids an advantage, and it's not only just the athletics. I think I told the board that when we were looking to buy the second Big Blue, I think we were the first ones to have the second. It's 2 buses, and then CrossFit Tours, when I went to them and was talking to the owner about the buses, because he was providing some guidance, and he told me, you don't want this one bus because the band instruments, you won't be able to get them all underneath.
Yeah.
And you'll have to store some on the bus. And so we went and we ended up buying a bus from him.
Yeah.
But it was all because of the ability to accommodate the band.
Yeah.
And
I know when we purchased the 2 that we have last year, when we purchased them, all of that was talked about. Will it hold the entire football? Can it take band? Where are they going to put their instruments? All of that is taken into consideration whenever we talk about either replacing or repairing or whatever. It's never our intention to make the kids go without. And I know the yellow buses, we only have a certain amount contracted for, besides the 2 Big Blues. So, we want it fixed just as quickly as possible, just as much as the kids do. And I know the kids miss it too, but it is our intention to get, eventually, to have 2 Big Blues fully, completely back and operational. That is our end goal.
Moving forward, since there have been so many issues with both buses, I'm curious as to what sort of safety inspection is done on the buses before they're put back into rotation, just because of, I know the law says that you have to have a DOT inspection on school buses.
Yes, so it will always have the DOT, and it always have, the state and federal inspections will always be there. What we are, because of some of the stuff that has come up over the last several months in this school year, it will be on a monthly maintenance schedule with a shop. So we'll take it to, and we're getting quotes from a couple different places. We've been to Sapp Brothers lots of times. Sometimes they're super busy and it takes a little bit longer. But I know that Loves has also started doing some of this work, so we're actually looking into that. Masters is off the table, but we had at one point started talking to them about it too. So we are doing some investigation into what shops would be able to do that for us, and we'll do it on a monthly basis going forward.
Are you the primary contact then for the bus project?
I am the president of the Booster Club. Our vice president is actually the one that heads the bus program, but him and I have kind of teamed up this year, just because there's been so much happen with both buses, unfortunately, over this entire school year. So, but Skylar Calvin is actually the vice president. He usually handles the bus situation.
Well, I know we've looked at the contract that's in place. It's been there for decades probably. There's some tweaks that we think we want to see, but we want to make sure that we've got you guys, we sit at the same table at the same time and have discussions.
Yeah.
Because number one, safety of those kids.
Right, absolutely.
And then how your entity's able to make it financially go. That probably needs to be discussed as well.
Yeah, and we're happy to do that. I know we re-signed at the beginning, we'll re-sign again at the beginning of the school year. And usually it's just a quick re-sign, but we would be more than happy to sit down and go through it and make changes. Whatever is best for the students is what everybody is after. So we're really willing to do that, for sure.
I'm going to ask one question. I know it's probably not going to be popular. I'm just curious, in our contract with EcoRide, one of the things we just stated is that they will not have buses that are older than 12 years at the start of the school year. And I guess I'm curious why we have that in our contract with our buses, but we don't have the same expectations for the buses carrying our kids probably further distances. Really, if it was important to put it in there, I guess that's a pretty specific number, an age, and we're 3 or 4 years over that now. So I guess I'm just curious if we have any concerns on that piece too.
So typically, when you negotiate with contracted bus services, at least the last 15 years I've done it, there's always a preference, and it always boils down to price, right? So they will negotiate a lower price with older buses, or a higher price with newer buses. It's just a negotiation point. More of a concern maybe sometimes is mileage. So sometimes you look at mileage, but then you talk about what type of miles those buses have been on. So you can build all those things into a contract, but it's hard to cover all of those bases and say, because if you talk about miles, then okay, so are they highway miles or are they gravel miles? Because then you sometimes end up with buses who've been on a lot of gravel roads and they're not, even though they're lower miles, they're not in as good shape. Same thing goes for age. You can talk about the age, but if it's been, typically charter buses are highway mileage, so you can get a lot more miles out of them than you can a school bus, which travels over gravel sometimes, if not a lot of the time.
The maintenance of them also, and that's what we ran into with Durham. The buses were getting older, so they'd bring us a newer bus that wasn't in as good a shape as so the age is a factor just for the contract. And with the EcoRide one, we had pushed for a 10-year. We had 2 proposals at that time, but they could do the 12-year with air conditioned at a price point that was more favorable than the 10-year without air conditioning. So that was that factor there. But the age is pretty much for the bidding purposes of that. It doesn't mean necessarily it's a better bus than, because it might come from someplace that wasn't as maintained as good, and it might not have had as good of, been on the gravel roads all the time.
And a lot of school buses are on gravel roads, quite frankly, and that's the difference between a school bus and a charter bus. So.
As long as it's maintained, though, the age is not really the problem. My father-in-law's a diesel mechanic, so the older sometimes are better, they're more reliable. So as long as it's maintained.
On doubling routes, how much manpower does that take to try to figure out which routes are going to get doubled up? Does that change when kids are getting dropped off?
Yes, it will. EcoRide manages that. Wanda will manage that and make those changes. It will. Usually we send out a message. I think Jill will send it out if we're going to be doubling up, or it might be a little bit later and that kind of thing. So they have right now, I was out there today and saw on the board, probably at least 4 or 5 trips a day, it seemed. I mean, the board was completely full for trips that they're taking. They have rented 2 vans to help with some special ed transportation, so that will free up a smaller bus. So they've gone above to do that, just to kind of help through this process. They also have brought on site, even though it's not part of our contract yet, 2 more buses. One of them is drivable right now, and one needs work to be done. But they do have those on site, even though that's not part of the contract. But it doesn't guarantee that you're gonna have 2 more drivers to add to that list of just take out 20 buses every month.
Well, it's an ongoing issue, and we'll keep addressing it. We'll address it next month as well if we need to. So,
Thanks, Mary.
Thank
Sorry
you
to be
very
No, that's
much.
okay. I don't mind.
helpful.
You're welcome.
Thanks. 7A, revision of 2022-23 other hourly pay schedule. I would accept a motion.
Move to approve the revision to the 2022-23 other pay salary schedule as presented.
Second.
So we're requesting an increase in the curriculum writing hourly pay for summer, just to match the summer school teacher pay, so that we don't have conflict over, well, I'd rather do this or rather do that. So it gives teachers the choice, or if they want to do both, that's a possibility too. But we just don't want to create a competing entity based on price, and it would go into effect for this school year. So,
Any questions? If not, we can vote on this. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
thank you.
8A, business services, Harrisonville High School concrete quotes.
I move to approve the quote from 2-3 Construction in the amount of $15,636 for curb, sidewalk, ADA ramp repair at Harrisonville High School.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions concerning this for discussion? If not, Chair would accept a vote. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. 8B, McEwen concrete quotes.
I move to approve the quote from 2-3 Construction in the amount of $27,605 for curb, sidewalk, and ADA ramp repair at Human Elementary.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Harrisonville Elementary School concrete quotes.
I move to approve the quote from 2-3 Construction in the amount of $20,397 for curb and sidewalk repair, as well as a new ADA ramp at Harrisonville Elementary School.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can I add something just really quick? You'll see on CLC's quote, they just kind of put numbers on the scope for many of them. I got a couple other quotes also that are separate. You'll see that on the next one. They are, for some of our other projects, they are low on those. So both will end up getting some work in that, but they're under the $15,000 threshold. So just FYI, both companies more likely will be getting work. We'll be talking about them.
Good. All those in favor, please signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. 8D, Memorial Stadium concrete quotes. A lot of concrete going on.
A lot of
I
broken concrete.
move to approve the quote from 2-3 Construction in the amount of $19,162.50 for repair to the South End Concourse sidewalk at Memorial Stadium. It's really nice that we had an estimate that had some sense in it too.
Yeah.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
One more just addition on that is we'll probably make some calls tomorrow, our hope is try to push this through to get it done before graduation, if at all possible.
Really?
So we're gonna try.
Okay.
Working around track meets, and we're gonna try.
We don't get any footprints in there.
We're gonna try. So this would be this year. The others would be for next year.
Oh, okay. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Long-range planning agreement.
I move to approve the agreement with Hollis Miller for long-range planning as presented to you.
Second.
So you might recall that this is the needs assessment that we use as our facility plan, our long range facility plan. So we've had a partnership with Hollis and Miller. The district has going back quite a ways, and that was the groundwork for our bond efforts. We tried to resolve a lot of those things on that list as much as we could with the existing funds. I feel like we're in a better situation now to deal with some of those things, but and really the process, in my opinion, was better this time because Jason went around with the principals and they looked at it first before just showing up with the architect and saying, "Hey, we're looking at this." So I think the process is good. The partnership has been really good. And so this is an important document. I'll just point out the fact that long-range planning is important when we go through a ratings call. So Deb will get a ratings call from S&P over any of our indebtedness. And so if we want to go out for bonds in the future, it's kind of based on those ratings, or they can reduce your ratings of existing bonds if you don't have a long-range plan in place. This is a document they frequently ask for in that process. So it's very important, and also preserves, a lot of the aspects of the district that we talk about: safety and security, roofing, asphalt, concrete. All those things are part of this. So a very important document in preserving the life of our assets in the district and other issues. So.
It serves us well. We have a motion and a second. Are there any more questions or discussion? If not, please signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn the regular meeting and reconvene in closed.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
This will be a roll call, Lisa.
Yes, we do need a roll call.
Emily? Yes. Michael?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes. Doug?
Yes.
Jenny?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.